So a year ago, it was around 30% less than today. So let's talk about pawn shops. So a customer comes in and has a chain that they were getting $100 on.
The fluorescent lights buzz overhead in American Jewelry and Loan, Detroit's most famous pawn shop. Les Gold stands behind the counter, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He's seen it all in his decades running this business. Desperate people, con artists, genuine treasures buried in junk. But nothing could prepare him for what's about to walk through that door. A customer enters carrying a guitar case. Just another guitar, right? Wrong. This isn't just any instrument. This is a piece of music history so rare, so valuable, that it could change everything. The question is, will Les recognize what he's looking at before it's too late? Welcome to the high-stakes world of hardcore pawn, where million-dollar items hide in plain sight, and one wrong decision could mean losing the deal of a lifetime. The setup: when history walks in unannounced. Let's be honest, how many guitars do you think walk into a pawn shop every single day? Dozens? Hundreds across a week? Most of them are beat-up beginner models, knockoffs, or instruments that someone's kid gave up on after 3 months of lessons. They're worth maybe $50 to $200, and that's being generous. So when this customer walks in, guitar case in hand, Les Gold has every reason to be skeptical. He's not being rude. He's being smart. Because in the pawn business, assuming something is valuable without verification is the fastest way to go broke. "What can I do for you today?" Les asks, his tone professional but guarded. The customer sets the case down carefully. Not dropped, not tossed, but placed with the kind of reverence that makes Les's antennae go up immediately. People who handle items carelessly usually don't have anything worth handling carefully. "I've got something special here," the customer says. "It belonged to my Aunt Mary." Les nods, waiting. Everyone's item is special. Everyone's grandmother or aunt or uncle owns something incredible. The stories are endless, and most of them lead nowhere. "It's a Les Paul SG," the customer continues. Now Les is interested. A Gibson. Les Paul SG from the right era could be worth serious money. But here's where it gets interesting. And this is where you need to pay attention, because this detail changes everything. "Was your Aunt Mary a guitar fan?" Les asks. "Or wasn't she Les Paul's wife?" Wait. Stop. Rewind. Did you catch that? Les Paul's wife? Not just any guitar owned by any aunt. We're potentially talking about Mary Ford, the Mary Ford, legendary musician and wife of Les Paul himself. If you don't know who Les Paul is, here's what you need to understand. Les Paul didn't just play guitar. He essentially invented the modern electric guitar as we know it. He created the Log, which was the first real solid-body electric guitar. He patented pickups, amplifiers, and virtually everything related to making an electric guitar work. Without Les Paul, rock and roll as we know it might not exist. And Mary Ford? She wasn't just his wife. She was an exceptional guitarist in her own right, performing alongside Les Paul in the 1950s when they were absolutely massive stars. We're talking sold-out shows, hit records, television appearances. They were the power couple of music before that term even existed. So if this guitar genuinely belonged to Mary Ford, and if it can be authenticated, we're not talking about a $500 guitar. We're not even talking about a $5,000 guitar. We could be looking at 6 figures. Maybe more. But Les Gold didn't build his empire by taking people at their word. He needs proof. The documentation. Paper trail or paper lies? This is a 1961 Gibson SG for Les Paul, the customer explains, opening the case to reveal the instrument. These things are rare, but a Gibson Les Paul connected to Les Paul himself. The value could skyrocket. Les examines the guitar carefully. It's in remarkable condition for something over 60 years old. The finish is intact, the hardware looks original, and it has that unmistakable vintage aura that you can't fake. But looks aren't enough. Not in this business. Not with this much money potentially on the line. Do you have any documentation? Les asks. Any proof this actually belonged to Mary Ford? This is the make or break moment. Without documentation, this guitar is just another vintage Gibson. Nice, valuable even, but not extraordinary. The customer reaches into a folder and pulls out papers. We have a lot of correspondence between Les and his agent, the customer says, spreading documents across the counter. Letters, contracts, signatures, the whole thing. No one has seen these documents before. They've been in my family since Mary passed. Les picks up the papers, scanning them carefully. These aren't photocopies or printouts. They're original letters, yellowed with age, with handwriting that looks period-appropriate. But handwriting can be faked. Signatures can be forged. Les has seen it all before. Elaborate schemes designed to make junk look like treasure. I want to call someone to look at these, Les says. I need someone to examine the signatures, verify the guitar, make sure everything is legitimate. Because if this is real, it's worth a fortune. If it's not, it's worth nothing. The customer agrees. What choice do they have? If they walk out now, they look guilty. If they stay and it's proven fake, they're exposed as fraudsters. But if they stay and it's authenticated, can you imagine the tension in that room? Everything riding on what an expert is about to say. The customer's potential windfall. Les's potential opportunity to acquire a piece of music history. The staff watching, knowing they're witnessing something special. This is what separates amateur pawn shops from legendary ones. It's not about making quick deals. It's about knowing when to slow down, bring in experts, and verify before you commit. The first expert, reading between the lines. When the handwriting expert arrives, the atmosphere shifts. This isn't casual anymore. This is serious business, and everyone can feel it. We have a lot of things for you to look at, Les says, gesturing to the documents spread across the counter. There are a lot of papers here that appear to be signed by Les Paul. I want to make sure it wasn't his secretary or someone else signing for him. The expert nods, understanding immediately. Famous people rarely sign everything themselves. They have assistants, secretaries, agents, people authorized to sign on their behalf. A signature from Les Paul's secretary might be authentic in the sense that it's real ink on real paper, but it's worthless in terms of collectible value. The expert examines the signatures under magnification, comparing stroke patterns, pressure points, the way certain letters are formed. This isn't just looking. This is forensic analysis. He didn't always write his last name, the expert notes. Many times he only signed with his first name. I noticed that in these documents. Les leans in closer. But the good thing is that it's very consistent, the expert continues. I don't see any evidence of a secretary. The consistency of the first name is right where we want it to be. The room holds its breath. And there's no doubt, the expert declares. It's real. There's no doubt. The first hurdle is cleared. The documents are authentic. Les Paul's own hand touched these papers, wrote these letters, signed these contracts. But that only proves the paperwork is real. It doesn't prove the guitar is what the customer claims it is. As for the value, the expert continues, we deal with many signatures here, including legends. This documentation could be worth $10,000 on its own. But if the guitar turns out to be authentic and connected to these documents, then it could be worth much, much more. $10,000 just for the paperwork. Think about that. Most people don't have $10,000 in savings, and this customer is sitting on that much value in old letters alone. But the guitar is the real prize. Les makes his next call. Let me bring in my guitar expert, he says. We need to verify the instrument itself. The guitar expert, where science meets history. When Jesse Amoroso walks into American Jewelry and Loan, Les knows they're about to get answers. Jesse isn't just a guitar enthusiast. He's a specialist in vintage instruments, particularly Gibsons and Fenders from the golden era of American guitar manufacturing. "Oh, wow, this is amazing," Jesse says immediately upon seeing the guitar. "I can't believe I have this in my hands." His reaction is genuine, unfiltered excitement. This is what he lives for, the chance to examine historical instruments that shaped music as we know it. But then, Jesse says something unexpected. Wasn't Les Paul unhappy with this guitar or something? Les looks confused. "What do you mean?" "Les actually hated these guitars," Jesse explains. "He had a tumultuous relationship with Gibson. He didn't agree with what they were doing to the guitars, the design changes they were making. The SG was a major departure from his original Les Paul design, and he wasn't happy about it." This is the kind of detail that separates real experts from amateurs. Anyone can identify a guitar brand and model. But knowing the behind-the-scenes history, the personal relationships between artists and manufacturers, that's specialized knowledge that takes years to acquire. "We should plug it in and make sure it works," Jesse says. "I want to play it." Les nods. "Go ahead." Jesse picks up the guitar, plugs it into an amplifier, and begins to play. The sound that fills the shop is unmistakable. That rich, warm tone that only vintage Gibsons can produce. It's not just a guitar. It's a time machine, producing sounds exactly as they would have been heard in the 1960s. Jesse plays for a few moments, lost in the experience. "It works," he finally says, setting the guitar down carefully. "It works well. Les Paul is my idol, playing a guitar that's closely associated with him. This is crazy for me." But emotions aside, Jesse needs to evaluate the instrument professionally. He examines it closely, checking every detail. "This guitar is on album covers," Jesse notes, cross-referencing the instrument against known photographs of Mary Ford performing. "It looks like the pickup covers were removed at some point. The bridge is original. You can tell they repaired a jack and a fret, which is common on a guitar from that era. Each of these details matters. Original parts increase value. Period-appropriate repairs are acceptable. Modern modifications would destroy authenticity." Jesse is building a case, piece by piece, detail by detail. "I have no doubt about this guitar," Jesse finally declares. "This is history, man." Les waits for the number. Everything comes down to this moment. "What's it worth?" Jesse takes a breath. "It could be a six-figure guitar. 6 figures. $100,000 minimum. Possibly more, possibly much more." "So you're saying $100,000? Les asks, making sure he heard correctly. "Maybe $150,000, Jesse clarifies. "It's an amazing guitar. If you buy this guitar, I don't think you'll have trouble selling it. The market for something like this is small, but the buyers are serious, and they have deep pockets." The negotiation, when numbers become weapons. Now comes the most delicate part of the entire transaction, the negotiation. The customer knows the guitar could be worth $150,000. Les knows it too. But knowing potential value and knowing what you can actually get for something are two very different things. "The important thing is," Les begins, his voice calm and measured, "how much do you want for it right now?" The customer doesn't hesitate. "I was thinking $250,000. $250,000. More than the expert's valuation. More than any realistic market price. This is the customer shooting for the moon, hoping Les will counter with something still well above actual value." Les doesn't flinch. He's heard bigger numbers before, and he's negotiated his way through tougher situations. "A few years ago, maybe," he says, "but there aren't that many buyers in the market right now. The economy's tough. People aren't spending on luxury items like they used to. Jesse said maybe $150,000, And that's at auction, with fees, with the right buyer walking through the door. The customer knows this is part of the dance. Les talks down the market, emphasizes risk, highlights the challenges of finding the right buyer. It's negotiation 101. If you want to check today, Les continues, I'll give you $75,000. $75,000. Exactly half of the expert's valuation. It's a conservative offer, protecting Les from risk while still offering the customer a life-changing amount of money. But the customer shakes their head. That won't happen. This is once in a lifetime. This guitar, this history. It's not something you see every day. They're right, and Les knows it. This isn't like buying a used car or a piece of jewelry. This is a singular item with documented provenance connecting it to one of music's most important figures. If you want it, the customer says, would you take $100,000? $100,000, the low end of Jesse's valuation. It's a reasonable number, defensible, backed by expert opinion. Les thinks. In his mind, he's calculating purchase price, holding costs, marketing expenses, auction fees if he goes that route, potential buyers, market timing. All of it runs through his head in seconds. I'll give you $85,000, Les counters. I can't pay a cent more than that. $85,000. Still well below the potential retail value, but a significant increase from his opening offer. He's moved $10,000 in a single counteroffer. That's serious movement in a negotiation. But the customer holds firm. If you want $90,000, you can keep it. $90,000. They've met in the middle more or less. Les is at $85,000. The customer wants $90,000. They're $5,000 apart after starting $175,000 apart. This is the moment. This is where deals either happen or fall apart. $5,000 might not sound like much when you're already talking about nearly six figures, but it represents margin, risk, and principle. Les looks at the guitar. He looks at the documentation. He thinks about Jesse's enthusiasm, the expert's authentication of the signatures, the rarity of this particular opportunity. $90,000 is my number, the customer says again, not budging. Les extends his hand. $90,000 is a deal. They shake. The deal is done. $90,000 for a guitar that could potentially be worth $150,000 or more to the right buyer. The aftermath: risk, reward, and reality. After the customer leaves, Les sits with the guitar, examining it again now that it's his. Did he make the right call? $90,000 is serious money, even for a successful pawn shop. If the market doesn't cooperate, if the right buyer doesn't materialize, he could be sitting on that investment for years. But here's what makes Les Gold a legend in this business. He understands that sometimes you have to take calculated risks on exceptional items. This isn't like buying bulk jewelry or common electronics. This is a once-in-a-career opportunity to own something that changed music history. Think about the journey this guitar has taken. Built in 1961 by Gibson's master craftsman, played by Mary Ford alongside Les Paul in recording studios and on stages across America. Present during the creation of music that influenced generations of artists, stored carefully in a family collection for decades. And now, sitting in a Detroit pawn shop, waiting for its next chapter. The guitar community is small but passionate. When word gets out that this instrument is available, serious collectors will come calling. Museums might be interested. Recording studios that specialize in vintage equipment could want it for sessions. High-end music stores that cater to professional musicians would love to have it. And here's the thing about truly rare items. You don't need to find hundreds of buyers. You only need one. One person with the resources and the passion to own a piece of music history. One collector who's been waiting their entire life for this exact opportunity. Les has built his business on understanding this principle. While other pawn shops chase volume, hundreds of small transactions adding up to profit, Les knows that sometimes the big wins come from the single exceptional deal. What this means for you. Lessons from the deal. So what can we learn from this incredible transaction? How does a $90,000 guitar deal at a Detroit pawn shop teach us anything applicable to our own lives? First, documentation matters. Without those authenticated letters and contracts, this guitar would have been worth maybe $10,000 to $15,000 as a vintage Gibson. The documentation multiplied its value by 10. If you own anything potentially valuable, artwork, collectibles, antiques, keep every scrap of paper that proves its origin and history. Provenance is everything. Second, expertise is worth paying for. Les could have looked at the guitar himself, made a guess, and either overpaid or missed out entirely. But by bringing in specialists who devoted their lives to studying these specific items, he got accurate valuations that protected his investment. When the stakes are high, amateur knowledge isn't enough. Third, negotiation isn't about winning. It's about finding a number both parties can accept. Les didn't get the guitar for $75,000. The customer didn't get $250,000. They met at $90,000, a price that gave less room for profit while giving the customer far more than they probably ever imagined when they inherited the instrument. Fourth, sometimes you have to be willing to walk away. If the customer had insisted on $250,000, Les would have passed. He has limits, boundaries he won't cross no matter how special the item. Knowing your maximum and sticking to it is crucial in any high-stakes negotiation. And finally, the most important lesson: value is subjective and market-dependent. That guitar could be worth $150,000 to one buyer and $75,000 to another. Timing matters. Finding the right buyer matters. Economic conditions matter. Nothing has a fixed, universal value. It's all about matching the right item with the right buyer at the right time. The bigger picture: why we're fascinated by these stories. There's a reason shows like Hardcore Pawn captivate millions of viewers. It's not just about the money, though that's certainly part of it. It's about the possibility that something valuable is hiding in plain sight. That your grandmother's old jewelry might be worth a fortune. That the guitar in your attic could fund your retirement. That treasure is everywhere if you just know where to look. We love these stories because they represent hope. Hope that we're not as broke as we think. Hope that our luck could change with one discovery. Hope that the boring stuff collecting dust might actually be life-changing, wealth waiting to be recognized. But these stories also remind us of something darker: how much value we might have thrown away out of ignorance. How many garage sales have unknowingly sold million-dollar items for $20? How many estate liquidations have lost fortunes because no one took the time to properly evaluate what was being sold? The Les Paul guitar represents both possibilities. The family that kept it recognized its potential importance, even if they didn't know its exact value. They preserved it, documented it, and eventually brought it to someone who could properly assess it. They did everything right, and they were rewarded with a $90,000 payday. But how many other families have thrown away or sold similar items for pennies because they didn't realize what they had? The question that haunts every collector. Here's what keeps Les Gold up at night, and what should make you think twice before your next spring cleaning. What did he miss? Every expert, no matter how knowledgeable, has blind spots. Every appraiser, no matter how experienced, has specialties and gaps in knowledge. Les Gold has probably passed on items worth millions because he didn't recognize what he was looking at. That's not a criticism. It's reality. No one can know everything about every category of collectibles. The same is true for you. Right now, reading this, you might own something valuable. You might have walked past something valuable at a yard sale last weekend. You might have thrown something valuable away last year. The guitar that sold for $90,000 wasn't obviously special. It required expert examination, documentation review, and market knowledge to recognize its true value. How many items in your life would reveal themselves to be valuable under similar scrutiny? The final word. What happened next? So what happened to the guitar after Les bought it? Did he find his buyer? Did he make his profit? Or is it still sitting in inventory, waiting for the right collector to come along? The truth is, we don't always get that closure. The cameras stop rolling after the deal is made. The show moves on to the next dramatic negotiation. But the business side continues, often for months or years after the initial transaction. What we do know is this: Les Gold doesn't stay in business by making bad deals. If he paid $90,000 for that guitar, he believed he could profit from it. Whether that profit came quickly through a direct sale, slowly through dealer networks, or eventually through auction, he saw a path to success. And that's perhaps the most important lesson of all. Successful people in high-stakes industries don't gamble on hope. They calculate risk, assess opportunity, and make informed decisions based on knowledge and experience. Les didn't hope the guitar was valuable. He verified it. He didn't guess at its market value. He consulted experts. He didn't pay what he felt like paying. He negotiated to a number that made business sense. The million-dollar question isn't whether the guitar was worth $90,000. The million-dollar question is, what's sitting in your house right now that could change your life if you only knew its true value? That old guitar in the closet? Those baseball cards in the attic? The vintage jewelry you inherited? Maybe it's time to find out. Because somewhere in Detroit, a family walked into a pawn shop with a guitar they thought might be worth something, and walked out $90,000 richer.